We're back. We're back. We loving it. I'm back from vacation. I'm back. I know it's been a while, but today we got the main event breakdown. Chimaev and Strickland. Yeah. Sorry. No, I've been away for a while since the whole Jerry Nolberg was a depressing era. Us Jerry fans, we're still recovering since then, but as time moves on, we must learn to also move on and accept that this is what the MMA gods want for this timeline, which I still don't accept it, but still, it's not the craziest event that has happened since, but it definitely is one of them. Now, today, as I was talking about my videos yesterday, I am making more shorts, daily uploads. I just uploaded one as I was talking about the whole editing on this video, but just wanted to bring up today that we have a very anticipated card coming up this Saturday. Kind of want to go over the main event. The Joshua event and Taitsuro Taira will be coming out either tomorrow or Thursday, and I will have a full card prediction, but that's gonna be in the short, just a quick rapid pop, you know. But today I want to go down over a breakdown of Chimaev versus Sean Strickland. Starting off with the boy Khamzat Chimaev. Okay, first of all, I want to kind of go over about his recent fights. On the screen, you're going to definitely tell something between the both of these fighters, between Khamzat and Sean Strickland. Since 2020, I did take out all the canceled events. Khamzat has not been extremely active. That's something that I do take considerate between picking my fighters. However, his quality of opponents has been insane. I mean, since he joined, right, he's been John Phillips literally in the first, in the second round, and by a Darce choke. Do you remember this? Rice McKee, first round ground and pound. Gerald Merkshire, literally the first 17 seconds of fight, right across, knocked him out. And if you look at the dates, I mean, July 15th, July 25th, that was 10 days. And then about 2 months later, he fought again. And then unfortunately, during this time, this is where he got the COVID situation. We had a bunch of canceled fights. He didn't end up fighting until a year later against Jin Lang Lee, the Leech. Picked him up, rear naked choke in front of Dana White. And then later, again, couple months. You could probably tell his time of dates he likes fighting is between July all the way to October. He doesn't end up fighting against Gilbert Burns, which was a barn burner, one of the greatest fights you ever see. Truly a Hall of Famer fight. Gilbert Burns definitely put the test on Khamzat. Unfortunately, this was the last time you'd see him at 170, since he did struggle to make weight after that. He had a great performance against Kevin Holland, which technically he was supposed to fight against Nate Diaz, but he missed weight by 8 pounds. So they had to literally switch the main event. And the whole card was literally a disaster. Not a crazy disaster, but it changed the entire narrative. Then he finally goes up to 185. There was a pullout, and Kamaru Usman comes in last minute. Beautiful fight. This definitely, those two back-to-back. Were at least the Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman were the toughest test for Khamzat. And he was able to slightly win. If I'm really being honest here, I generally think that if Kamaru Usman decided to take that 5-round fight, he would have won that fight. Or if he came with a full camp, he would have beaten Khamzat. It's just after the first round, Chimaev started to slow down, and Kamaru started to pick up and did a beautiful job defending takedowns, outboxing him. But since then, again, 1 year later, you're supposed to fight Robert Whittaker earlier, got pulled out of an injury, goes out there, finished him with the face crank, literally breaking his jaw in the first round. Big test, middleweight. And then he finally goes and defeats Dricus du Plessis in a most dominant wet blanket performance. But That is the recap of his UFC career as of right now. He hasn't had many fights. This was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is gonna be his 11th UFC fight. And his span since 2020 is 6 years. That's kind of an average of only 2 fights a year. So moving forward, we're gonna be talking about his strengths. Now, look, Khamzat is one of those very unique individuals that it was very not difficult to ask him his strengths. It's just he's very basic, right? Nothing wrong with being basic. It's probably the best way to learn anything. Learn a few, but go so in deep with those tool sets that no matter what the opponent knows what's coming, they can't do anything about it, right? He has power. If he hits you, he cracks. All right. Yeah, he hasn't had a lot of like knockouts on his hand, and we've seen that he's kind of struggled against guys in the 170. But that still doesn't take away that when he hits you, he doesn't. I just generally don't think he wants to look for a knockout. That's just not his plan. If he wanted to, like he did in Mershart earlier in his career, he can put you away. And I believe he has that in his hands still. He has power. His cardio. In the beginning of his UFC, the biggest question was his cardio, because he was finishing guys in the first round. And when we saw against Gilbert and Kamaru Usman, is that he does tend to slow down in later rounds. However, he was still in the fight. As much as you could say that he did slow down, yes, but he didn't waver. He didn't like fatigue so bad that he was losing in that round, right? And his Dricus du Plessis answered everything. All his questions about his cardio was answered on the DDP fight. He went out there, literally laid on him, beat him all the way to the 5th round. Even at the last minute when DDP did reverse him, he was in that fight, just putting that pressure. And it's difficult to hold someone down for that long. As chain wrestling, right? Let's just be honest. He is extremely well known as his wrestling background. He probably is the best next to GSP, Merab, Khabib in terms of utilizing the wrestling in MMA. He is just so dominant. And his jiu-jitsu, he can find submissions, right? Most of his finishes come from submissions. He doesn't come from jiu-jitsu background, but come on, like he is far better than most of these jiu-jitsu guys are in the UFC in terms of submission. And he has a beautiful boxing guard. I like his leg kicks and his calf kicks. He doesn't utilize it that much, but he does keep a strong foundation on his boxing guard. Sometimes he lacks his head movement, which I should have put this in the next category, but he always has his hands up, doesn't play around having his hands down, doesn't get really clipped. So this is one of many of his strengths. Now let's go on his weaknesses. I'm not gonna lie, this was difficult. It was very hard to find the weaknesses because one of them is kind of the cardio. But let me break these down, right? And the weakness, he is not actually defensively sound. He gets caught pretty relatively easy. On the Kamaru and the Gilbert Burns fight, the one fights that did kind of not expose him, but gave him a hard time, it was because he lacked head movement. He wasn't moving his head out of the center line when he was throwing a jab or a cross. His switch stance is not that good. So if you attack his leg kicks, I don't think you'll be comfortable switching from southpaw to orthodox or orthodox to southpaw. And this can lead to a problem in this fight, which I'll go later here in a bit. His cardio. Though his last performance was amazing and he did really well holding DDP down, I still don't know how he would do if he had someone like putting in the pressure and actually attacking him, right? Like getting hit in the body. How are you mentally stable to go through the 5th, the 4th, the 5th round, right? Then when Kamaru was putting in that pressure and Gilbert, when he was actually getting damage, That is when we saw that he started to slow down. DDP couldn't do that to him. That's why we didn't see him fatigue in the later rounds. And this is something that I could potentially see in the third, fourth, and fifth, that he starts to slow down once the damage starts accumulating. Emotional. I don't think it's a big weakness, but it is against a guy like Sean Strickland, which will be trying to get into his head, and we'll see how he reacts to it. Most of his opponents he ever fought never really had a problem with him. Kamaru, not the Gilbert, not even Kevin, not even Robert. DDP kind of talks smacked a little bit, but never really got into his head. But I wonder how he would do against a guy who's literally called him a lot of insults, and how he emotionally will handle that. I think he will do really well, but however, again, this was very difficult to find no weaknesses in him when he is really fucking good. Excuse me for that language, but still. And the last one, first round explosion. What do I mean by that? One of my things that I wonder if he will do it, because he hasn't really done it in a while, but is he going to put everything in the first round? Like, are you going to go all out to try to finish him in the first one? And if it doesn't work, how would you manage that? He does tend to go immediately the first 30 seconds, just shoot a takedown from the middle of the cage, get him down and trying to look for a finish. When that happened against Kamaru, same thing. Kamaru was able to survive, and then he wasn't able to implement his game plan. Same thing will happen to Gilbert. Was able to survive. Second and third round, it became a lot more difficult. Now, path to victory. A bulldoze in the first minute. Kind of almost contradicting what I said last one. But if you want to put a stellar performance in a statement, you go all out in the first minute and just put your will against Sean and show like there are levels to this. Chain wrestle. If Sean defends your takedown, keep shooting. I don't think that's pretty much a problem. However, he isn't like Khabib where he keeps on shooting. No. In the Kamaru and the Gilbert fight, he actually ends up shooting later in the round. On the second round against Kamaru, he didn't shoot until literally like the last minute. The third round, he did shoot, but failed twice. And then towards the end of the round, then he finally got it. But you need to chain them up. You're going to get the first one. You can't wait till the middle of the round or the end of the round. Shoot. Consistently shoot. Spread out the rounds. Pacing. You might get beat up if you can't take him down. So if you can't bulldoze him in the first minute, pace yourself out. You still have 5 rounds. First round, you might have got him down, beat him up, ground and pound, but he's able to get back up. All right, second round, let's slow it down. Let's take him down. Let's get a breather. And that kind of opens up to the fourth part, make submissions openings. The one thing I hated about the DDP fight was that though he had dominant positions, he had him in the crucifix, he had him in positions where, but he wasn't making or forcing DDP to make mistakes to get a submission. You could take him down. You can't control him. All right, we see how many minutes, but only be on top of him for like 24, 23 minutes in the entire fight. You couldn't find a submission or force him. You have long arms. You could force a Darce, right? You could force an arm bar. You could force an arm head triangle, right? Like just beat him up to the ground and pound, right? And then the last one, utilize the leg kicks and the jab to open Sean Strickland's guard. And that makes it easier to shoot. Problem with Khamzat, and I should have put this in a weakness, is that he doesn't really set up his takedowns. He literally just shoots. He does find perfect entries and perfect timing, but if he can't, he's not properly setting them up with the jab or a kick or trying to fake an overhand right and then going for a single or a double. That's the one thing that I probably would say like he should implement in his fight. But yeah, these are his path to victory. Next up, Sean Strickland. You're going to see a couple more reds. Look, first of all, I like Sean Strickland. He is crazy. I think he is definitely needed in the sport. Is he a likable person? That's up to you. But let's kind of going through his records, right? I only put the ones that since Khamzat joined and since he been in the UFC. Obviously, Sean Strickland has been in the UFC way longer. He has actually 17-7 in the UFC. His only losses came from Alex Pereira, Jared Cannonier, Dricus du Plessis twice. The Andy Varela, that was just a grappling match. So, but kind of highlighting his wins. Sean Strickland fights whoever and wherever type of fighter, right? He fought Brendan Allen, who's in the top 5 now, right? He fought Jack Marson. He fought against Uriah Hall, Jack Hermanson, arguably beat Jared Cannonier. I'm one of those guys. When I saw a fight, I thought Sean won that fight. It could have gone either way. Beat last minute Nasruddin Imavov. He came in, I think 10 days or a week notice. Beat Abus Magomedov when Abus was come up highlight. He was unranked and they just gave it to Sean. Then he fought and had his performance of his lifetime, right? Against Israel Adesanya. Great performance. Arguably, I still think, and this is where I'm not biased or anything, right? But I did think he beat Dricus du Plessis the first time. So, in taking account, right, his only real losses was against Pereira and DDP on the rematch. Right? Obviously, in the second fight, DDP just absolutely just destroyed Sean. And he beat Paulo Costa in a split decision. It was a very boring fight. And somehow that warranted him a title fight against DDP, which I was absolutely against it. And now he beat Anthony Hernandez. Now, I don't think Sean should have gone this title fight. It should have been Nasruddin Imavov. He did it. Obviously, even though Sean beat him, Nasruddin has done all he can to come up and beat everybody else. Right? He beat Kyle. He beat Isley, but we're not talking about that today. He had his great performance against Anthony Hernandez, his first finish since, Abus, which was back in 2023. And since then, he doesn't really finish fighters. Obviously, Sean isn't really known for power, which we're going to go into. His strengths. Sean has one of the best boxing you'll see in the MMA. His Philly shells are extremely well known, especially his teeps and his jabs. He's extremely defensively sound. Try landing on him is almost impossible. You got to catch him. Like how Alex did. Alex was able to catch him, and he had that nearly nuke that was able to knock Sean Strickland out. And he has a chin. Sean has a chin. Alex was only able to finish him, but come on, it's Alex Pereira, right? He is an anomaly in that situation. He's really good at fighting the outside. I like him fighting more forward and stuff, but if he needs to fight outside, he's really good at it. But he's mostly known to push up forward. He's really good at using the cage wrestling up, putting his body against it and going forward. Even though he's been taken down, he's always been able to get back up. That's the one thing that it's kind of like the ace in his sleeve, where he might be taken down, but he doesn't stay down. I never seen Sean actually be on the ground for any extensive period of time. Even when DDP took him down, he was able to still get back up. And his cardio. He has one of the best cardios you'll ever see in the UFC history. He's up to Max Holloway, the Colby Covington. He has a relentless pace where he's completely pushing forward, and his cardio, he doesn't get tired. I've never seen him breathe heavily from his mouth. Always able to move forward. And he's always there in your face. Now let's talk about weaknesses from this fight. And it is also his pace. The one thing that Sean saw when he was fighting against Paulo Costa and DDP in the second time was that his pace slows down, right? If you're trying to fight in his pace, the reason why his cardio is also really well is because he's not an explosive fighter. He's not running to you. He's not throwing big bombs. He's kind of more patient with his teeps moving forward. He's walking you down. And against a guy like Khamzat who's extremely explosive, I don't know if you can implement your pace against him. Takedown defense. Doesn't have a great takedown defense, right? Like he's been taken down. Not as often, but he's been taken down from lesser wrestlers, right? Kamaru Usman was able to take him down in his 170. DDP was able to take him down. Not hold him down, but he was still taking down. And against a guy like Khamzat, you're going down. It's just if you're able to get back up, that's the question. Power. Sean doesn't have that power to put out a Khamzat on the chin. Maybe you could finish him in the body, but Fluffy was also finished through the body by Kevin Holland. So that's the one thing, like he doesn't have that nuclear option to like, oh, it's not going my way. Let me land on his chin and just take him out. He has to build up to it, right? And that's kind of what leads to him being overwhelmed. The only way you beat Sean Strickland is you don't let him get started. He is not physically opposing. That's kind of another mention his weakness. So he's not really strong. And if you don't let him get started, he's always just going to be pretty much defending himself the entire time. And that's how DDP beat him dominantly on the second fight. Was Sean Strickland injured? Maybe. I wasn't there in the camp. However, all I know was that what I saw was that he was being overwhelmed. He was not a single moment was able to start at all. Now, path to victory. You got to make it dirty. Move forward. The times that Khamzat was vulnerable was when Gilbert and Kamaru, which I can't bring those names up because those were the best signs that could potentially beat Khamzat, was that these guys made it dirty. They had maybe not the better striking. Like Kamaru did really good using his jab and his cross, but he was able to bite down the mouth guard and just start wailing on Khamzat, forcing him to make it a dirty battle, right? So it's like, okay, you're not moving your head. You throw 1, 2, you're not really known as combos, so let me make it dirty, all right? Body kicks. Use the teeps to push him away from you. Throw knees. Obviously, I know Sean isn't really known for knees, but if you're in a clinch or in defending a takedown defense, throw 1 knee. Slow Khamzat down, all right? Don't always like headhunt, which he did a perfect job against Anthony Hernandez, which he was mixing it up. He was using the head, the teep, the leg kicks to slow him down. Then start hitting the body, and it completely shut Fluffy down. I don't know how that would affect Chimaev, but that is still a way to get to it. And using the cage. All right, you can't be always in the center line because if he shoots and takes you down, you're going to just struggle to get back up. And this is the ways I could see it. Like, if hypothetically Sean is able to stop those takedowns, then he has to overwhelm him with his striking, which obviously Sean is the far better striker fundamentally, but we'll see. Now, with all of this, my final prediction, what will it be? Kinda hate to say this, but I do think that Khamzat wins. And I'm kind of going to go quick reason why. It's just that he does overwhelm you. He is bigger. He is stronger. He will impose his will against Sean Strickland. I just don't think that Sean Strickland will ever have his start. I don't think that Khamzat is going to finish Sean. I do think he's going to probably wet blanket him, hold him down, ground and pound him, beat him. But I just don't see there's any moment that Khamzat is going to let Sean Strickland stand on his feet and engage in a striking battle. Right? When he knows himself, like, I can't take him down. Right? Sean hips are always straight. He's always standing forward. He's never like really having his hands down low, ready to stop a takedown. And Khamzat is just always going to be able to shoot and just find his way. Right? This is another, like, I would say like a DDP type of performance. Islam versus JDM type of performance. It's just when these guys fight, they're not fighting for the people in the crowd. They're fighting for themselves. And they understand, like, all right, this guy wrestling is not good. Let me exploit that. And I wish I had the confidence, like a Kamaru Usman type of takedown defense, to be like, okay, he can't stop it. I just don't see it with Sean Strickland. But hey, I can be surprised, all right? And I'm willing to accept that. But if Sean Strickland wins, what does he, fights Imavov next or DDP, right? Like, I don't know. Khamzat, obviously we know what happens. If he wins, he moves up the division. He goes to light heavyweight. He has one more fight in him. That's what I see. But anyways, I do have Khamzat winning this Saturday. And then I will have the next Joshua Vanford Taitsuro Taira tomorrow. I'm going to do a little bit more study tape between them. But I do appreciate you watching. Like and comment and subscribe. And peace.